Hey, so I have a confession to make because for 3 weeks I pretty much ate whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, while basically doing nothing, and that almost gave me another panic attack. And it wasn't the food or other bad habits, it was essentially the guilt and the way I programmed my brain around these. But when I finally noticed what was actually happening in my head, I realized that those bad habits weren't the problem at all. So today I want to go over why falling off your path isn't what actually sets you back, and what I think it does. And if you've ever fallen off something and then spent weeks, months, or even years maybe feeling bad about it, this one's gonna be for you, so let's talk about it. Hey yo, if you're new here, I'm Alex, and I'm spending a year kind of becoming the person I keep telling myself I'll be one day, and I'm documenting the whole thing here on YouTube every single Monday. And because this was a weight loss journey up until this point, and I mean it's gonna continue to be, I actually owe you a number because last week I promised I was gonna have a real update. And that number is actually 119.3 kilos. Yes, it went up again. Even though 3 weeks ago when I came back from my vacation, I promised myself that I was gonna get right back on it, right back on track. And well, as you can see, I didn't really. I mean, if anything, it went the other way. But I'm gonna have to give you a bit of context here because there's two different things, and I spent the whole 3 weeks, the last 3 weeks, kind of meshing them together. So before these past 3 weeks, I was on a vacation for 2.5 weeks where I pretty much did whatever I wanted, and I just let myself enjoy life. I enjoyed myself. And I'm not gonna apologize for that one because, like, what's the point of doing all of this if you can't enjoy life every once in a while? But that was a conscious decision. I made that decision on purpose and I knew what I was doing. But then I came back home and I said, right, back on it. And then for 3 weeks, I just wasn't. And that wasn't a decision, actually. It was a promise that I made to myself that I just didn't keep for 3 weeks every single day. And you know, the honest part that nobody really talks about that much is the fact that it feels good in the moment. A whole bag of chips and half a tub of ice cream, or a whole tub of ice cream on a Saturday night while doing absolutely nothing else feels good. But the whole time there's this like low hum in the back of my head that says you'd said you'd do something and you're not doing it. And it builds from there. By the end of it, I was actually properly anxious. In fact, it got so bad that at some point I actually got close to another panic attack. And trust me when I say this, but I had enough of those in order to see one coming. But then I finally stopped and kind of separated the two things. And it changed how I saw it all. Because first of all, there was a real problem in there. I said I would do something and I didn't do it. That one's mine. That one needs to be fixed. But on top of it, there was this second thing that wasn't true at all. And that's the idea that a bag of chips is bad. That a lazy Saturday was somehow dangerous. Or that that's just evidence that something's wrong with me. And do you know what the crazy thing is? This second part, I actually programmed myself. And I know exactly where it comes from. And if you've ever tried this self-improvement stuff before, you do too. Because the second you decide to change your life for the better, I hope, the algorithm catches up to that. And then it feeds you the most hardcore version of that idea it can find with no days off and no excuses. And I'm not saying that all of that is bad, because some of it is actually really good. I like a lot of it. And it acts as really good motivation. But the framing underneath it allows for exactly zero mistakes. So when you eventually fuck up, and that's not an if, it's a when, because you will, especially with something this big, you don't just feel like you had a bad week, you feel like you kind of failed an entire philosophy, and that's a much heavier thing to carry. But that's also a lie, by the way, because none of these people are perfect. We're all trying to figure it out. All of us, day by day, as we go. We're living life for the first time, all of us. They're just filming the good parts. And here's what I had completely backwards for 3 weeks, because I thought that that hum that I had in the back of my head was going to help me, but it actually did the exact opposite. I thought it was gonna help me get back on track easier, but on the contrary, because it made the whole thing feel heavier and starting again felt kind of enormous. And you know this move, even if you've never been on a diet your whole life, because you decide to just skip Monday at the gym. But now you feel like shit about it, and because you feel like shit about it, Tuesday becomes even easier to skip. By Thursday, the week's kind of a write-off, right? And then somewhere in there, it stops being a missed session and it becomes something more like, I'm just not somebody that follows through. So today I'm gonna start again. I'm gonna get back on track, and I'm not gonna read you through like a 10-point checklist, because that's the kind of nonsense I talked about last week that you shouldn't do. But I do have a plan though, a small one, because I want to log everything that I do every single day, just so I have some data, just so I have something to hold myself accountable with. But I do want to talk about one last thing, and this was the thing that actually pulled me out of this. Zoom out. And I do mean like properly zoom out, stand back and look at the whole picture. Because if I look at the past 3 weeks, they do look kind of like a disaster. But if I look at who I was 5 years ago, I'm not even the same person anymore. I'm much more ahead than I used to be. So no, this stretch wasn't good. But it's 3 weeks. 3 bad weeks inside a few years that were genuinely good. And I'm sitting here and I'm really proud of the person I became. Because after all, I think that that's the actual game. You don't need everything to be perfect. Perfect doesn't exist. You just need more good days than bad ones. And you need enough of those so you can zoom out and at some point see that you went far away. The line itself still goes up, you know? It just looks bad when your face is pressed right against it. So if you take one thing from this, make it this. If you ever fall off, and you will, it will happen, separate the two things. Fix the sleep and throw away the verdict. Have the bag of chips today and tomorrow, and maybe for one fucking week, you know? But just make sure you're gonna have more positive weeks than this kind of negative ones. And in the end, just cut yourself some slack. Allow yourself to fuck up every once in a while, because nobody knows exactly what they're doing. We're all living life again for the first time. So tell me, what's the one thing you beat yourself up about way harder than it deserved? Leave it in the comments below and let's talk about it. And if you missed last week's video, that's the one about how I accidentally turned something I love into homework. If you're a perfectionist like I am, it's worth checking out, so make sure you go watch that one next. And always remember, it's not that serious.